Well, hello, Vancouver and all people across the lands in Indian country. Here today with Simon Baker, actually actor, documentary filmmaker, lacrosse extraordinaire, but also mostly our culture. He's a really keeper of our culture, which I think has been incredible. Known Simon for many years. Thank you, Simon, for being here today.
Hi, Chika. Thank you. Thanks, T, for inviting me onto your show. When I heard that you're doing this, sparked my interest and had to come on.
Absolutely, bro. And hey, I mean, you're always so busy. We see each other from time to time on different things. Got a chance to play some lacrosse on your team this summer, those kinds of things. So thanks for keeping lacrosse alive and getting, our whole community was involved, which is the best part. But most recently, the theatrical release of Hey Viktor, which is, for those who don't know, is, kind of a follow-up to yes, Hey Viktor. Over the years, Smoke Signals. Tell me a little bit about Hey Viktor and just kind of the origins of it and kind of how it all came to be.
Well, Hey Viktor, has never left me. I'm 38 years old now, and that's the only show that people recognize me from, and still, I was like 10 years old when I did it, and they're like, aren't you the boy? Aren't you young Thomas? Oh my God, and I'm like, yeah, well, I've done other shows. No. Let's talk about Smoke Signals. But Smoke Signals was, like such a huge, impactful show to indigenous country, right? It was the first of its kind, the first director, first written, first starred cast. And then, it did so well in Sundance and went on from there. And then our communities just picked it up, Hey, Viktor, everybody just got it and still says it, if we have cousins that are Viktor, I'm sure they hate it,
Well, I don't think I'd call anybody, Hey, Viktor, you have to do it, right?
Exactly.
You have to do it. And that was one of your lines, right?
Yeah.
Smoke Signals, obviously.
Yeah. And it's not even like the indigenous people, like they've played it in schools, universities. So people, like my friends, that are non-indigenous are like, oh yeah, man, we love Smoke Signals. We just, we watched it in our high school. We did, write-ups about it. And, it just carried on. So, my buddy and I on the anniversary, the 20th anniversary, which was 5 years ago now, crazy. We got invited to the Hard Rock Cafe, Seminole, resort in Fort Lauderdale.
Yep.
And they did this big 20th year anniversary, brought us in, highlighted us. They showed it. And my buddy, Cody Lightning, who's the director, writer, creator of it, just sat there and we were sitting at the bar and he said, you know what? Would you be interested in doing a revamp of Smoke Signals? And I looked at him and I was like, okay, is this one of those river stories? Okay, yeah. Let's recreate Smoke Signals, bro. Okay, we're actors. Let's keep the writing and the creation to the other people that are good at it. We're just actors. But we just sort of created and thought about it, and that sort of like sparked up the real idea of it. And he just was like, okay, yeah, if you're on board and you're cool with it, so that went off and we went separate ways again. And probably 5 years after that, he called me up. No, 3 years after, he called me up and said, man, we got the budget. We got the green light to film Hey Viktor. Still on board. And I'm like, well, who is this? He's like, yeah, let's get it to go in. And, and we created this sort of like mock script to it. And that's all we have for it. But we're really going to improv a lot. We're going to make fun of it and create with it and do this type of thing. And I've done a lot of unscripted work, in documentaries and stuff. So you just roll with what you got. And I'm not a comedy guy. I think I'm more dramatic than comedy. But some people think I'm funny, and I guess I took it and used that with it. But really, I didn't even get a script till like 2 weeks before we started filming.
Wow. And how is it a little bit nerve wracking, or is it, you look forward to that, or, you gotta be in the moment really too as well, right?
Right. Well, especially, with my buddy Cody Lightning's, his personality and his thinking, I was really scared. I didn't know where he was going to take it. I didn't know how it was going to go. He's got a different mind of things, and a different perspective of life. And so, and he's a real comedian, he completely, he grew up on the res, he knows resi stuff, and he just took it with it, and, I saw the script and I just laughed at it, the whole time I was laughing. And then, some of it I was like, man, does this guy really hate me, dislike me? I didn't know how to really take it in because it felt so real at first. Right. So it's funny because I was filming in Scotland on a show, Outlander. And
okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So I got booked this show and, didn't even think, hey, Viktor was going to come. In Canada, we barely get any funding for shows. So, we just waiting on this funding. And I was like, man, I gotta take off to Scotland. I got to pay bills. I got another show I'm booked. And I went and did that and got to Scotland and I had to shave my head. And completely shave it right off.
I did see some of your social media feed on that too as well. So that was real.
That was real, man. Yeah, I got there and they're like, oh yeah, that, part of your contract says that you got to shave your head. And I'm like, oh, I call my agent. I'm like, oh, that's nice to know. But it was a good change, right? It changed everything up. I never had a bald head before, and hopefully I never do again. But I got back, and that was during COVID too, right? So we were traveling during COVID times. I had to fly back in quarantine while Hey Viktor was filming, and I showed up, and Cody's like, dude, you shaved your head. Where's your braids? Where's your long hair? You're supposed to be young Thomas. You can't be young Thomas without braids. And I said, you know what? It's going to make it funnier if I just have a wig, some little dandy wig that, looks all Nana push and, and it worked great.
Since there really wasn't a script all the last two, it's kind of what you make it to be, right? So you kind of roll with it.
You roll
right?
with the punches. And that's how almost every single day for 3 weeks I filmed Hey Viktor was, you didn't know what was coming at you. You didn't know what Cody was going to say, what I was going to say, how I was going to react to Cody. And so there was Hey Viktor is a mockumentary. And it mocks the day in the life of Cody Lightning. And, this was 25 years ago. And, he imagined this whole thing of, well, I'm really famous. I'm this famous indigenous kid that, people know me still, and so we made fun of it. Nobody knows us. Nobody remembers us really. They're like, you're sort of memorable, but not really. We're dads. We're just these guys that, people are like, oh yeah, you're semi-recognizable, So it just makes fun of, everything that has occurred in Cody's life. He makes up all this stuff that me and him hate each other, and we had this falling out, and we, clashed throughout the whole movie. But it's good. We took it. We opened our world premiere at Tribeca.
Okay, where's that?
And that's in New York. So there was in Tribeca. It's a really big. It's Robert De Niro's film festival. He started it. So, it's the area, Tribeca in New York. And he started this film festival for New York. And it's hard to get into it, especially, an international Canadian indigenous film. And they got back to us immediately and were like, yes, please, can we do your world premiere here in Tribeca? It's the first one from back from COVID, and we want to vamp it up and give you guys a highlight. And we jumped at it. We were like, yeah, we'd love to open up, have a world premiere at Tribeca. So us little, indigenous, young Thomas, young Viktor, semi-middle-aged young Thomas and young Viktor now.
Yeah.
Flew all the way to New York and opened up down in New York and had a blast. But we didn't sell. We didn't sell in New York. It was a really weird market. During the SAG strike that was happening, there wasn't much bites at it. So we're sort of disappointed, but we got to open up in New York, and it was a really good feel. But right after that, we went to TIFF. Toronto International Film Festival. Yep. And we got into there, which is another big film festival, hard to get into. And we went there. The second day that we got there, Level Films came and said, yeah, we want to buy this film. This film needs to have a theatrical. We believe in it. It's kind of cool because Level Films was going through sort of a new, cleaning of house type thing. So there was new CEOs and new people wanting to buy new, fresh film, fresh content. So I think that really helped us out in the long run. And they just said, we love the film. We want to get behind it and see where we could take it. And we sold at TIFF. And there wasn't that many Canadian films that sold. And we were just very privileged to sell at Toronto.
That's amazing. And just the story too. I mean, your launch, the story of how it all came to be and where the genesis of it. And then, kind of launching in New York, but also in TIFF. I mean, TIFF is worldwide known. I mean, it's a big festival.
Yeah.
You play with Cannes. It's kind of like, at least that's how I think about it. Am I off on that?
No, you're
kind of similar to that.
Oh, totally. It's a huge deal. It's, I've only been for the 30 years that I've been in our industry. I've only been twice. And I've been in some big films, and I've only got to go to this film festival twice. And it's a big honor when you get accepted and get invited to these big parties. You're hobnobbing with all the, people that you see on camera and that you give respect to. And, it's daunting at times, but, when you're a creator of a film, a producer, an actor, and, you feel like you fit in now, it's time. It's our time. A lot of indigenous creators out there now, and it feels good. It feels right.
Must feel amazing, just to see other indigenous peoples doing their things with producing, directing, acting. I mean, it seems like just more and more has been happening over the time. But you're right. It is the time. Yeah. For so long, we were always on the outside looking in so many different facets. So whenever I see yourself or others that are out there doing their thing, I take great pride in that, of just seeing that, not only we know you, we're connected through family, but at the same time, there's so many others doing that as well. And you kind of, laying the groundwork in the foreground for those that are coming behind. And when I think of, hey, Viktor, my son, I was showing him, some of the photos, some of the backstory, and we watched Smoke Signals and those kinds of things. And he just loved the fact, like, it's basically a modern take. It's a today's take on things.
Yeah.
Which to me, there's been so many of those kinds of things, like Cobra Kai, for example, it's a modern take on what we grew up watching. Right. And I used to go 250 Tuesdays, to the movie theaters and go watch movies like, The Karate Kid. But to see the modern take and the thinking, what you guys have done in that, I think it's connecting with, like, my son who's 17. Right. And so I think that's the part of we're connected to it. And I'm older than you by quite a few years, but at the same time, it's really crossing all boundaries. And I think, I didn't know if that was part of what you thought about in creating Hey Viktor, but I think that's what it's really doing.
We were just blessed to have so many creators on the show, and the thought of it, the different type of film style that we did, we could have just made a movie about us hating each other and what we have been up to in the last 20 years, and still would have made a funny comedic feature. But this is a mockumentary, we had two cameras going at all times, and just following us and moving with us. There wasn't, we set up a couple scenes, so it wasn't like a regular film. We weren't, we didn't set up all the lights and do all these big elaborate setups. it was just roll, man. Like, okay, we're here. This is our marks. You're good. You're good. Okay, let's go. And we just rolled with it, had fun. Every day I was laughing, man. You know, my head hurt in the back of, just because I was laughing so hard every day, smile. My dimples, I think, got bigger while I was filming, just getting too much.
Especially First Nation people. I mean, one thing people don't really understand about us, I mean, there's lots, facets of us and parts of our life, but the humor is, I mean, from the elders to the kids, I mean, that's what we're about. Mm-hmm. We have to have, especially what we've been through in our lives over the years, but, working with like Gary Farmer and like Colin, Mockery, like you have to tell me it because, I mean, he was on Whose Line Is It Anyway, right? So this kind of, this ad-libbing kind of stuff. Is there anything that stands out with any of the other actors or something, one moment that you can kind of share with us from the making of the film?
So we casted and we just, put it out there when we had the script, semi-script, I guess you would call it, in the green light. Our casting agent, we just said, these are some of the names that we would like to, play around with and see if we could get any bites. So we reached out to like Mike Myers, Seth Rogen, and it's funny because they got back to us and we're like, yeah, man, this is a cool script. This is really awesome. But sorry, I have, this $20 million project or this huge other project that I've committed to already. But let me link you up with somebody. Let me hook you in with somebody, so they sort of, guided us into another avenues. And, so we casted what's his name? The East Indian comedian Russell Peters. So we casted him and we had him locked in onto our show. He was originally the Collins character. And it was awesome, where we're all good to go. But then almost 2 days before he was going to come to set, he called and said, man, sorry, I just can't do it. Something came up. I'm so sorry, but I have somebody for you. Here's his number, his personal number. He already took a look at the script and he's very interested. Give him a call. And so it was Colin Mockery. So we gave Colin a call. He's like, yep, I'm there. I want to be there. This is such a freaking funny show. I love it. Can I swear more? Can I, just be like, just this guy? And we're like, yeah, go ahead. This is, if you want to do it. So Cody got to do this. I was still in Scotland, but I heard all the stories from when Colin came on for the 2 days that he was there. He's the master of improv. Right? Yeah. Like he's from Whose Line Is It Anyway? Like, so Cody, he told me the story. He's like, man, I'm sweating. Cody already sweats a ton. Like he's, this hairy indigenous guy that just sweats all the time. Right. And so he's like, man, I was sweating profusely. Like it was hard because I was so intimidated. I'm about to improv with one of the best improv guys around. And, it was just in my head that I was going to fail. But then Colin comes on, boom. He already told the camera guys, just roll, just roll with what we got here, man. When I come in and introduce myself to Cody, let's just roll with it. And so they did. They rolled and did their thing, and Cody just fell into it, man. They improv with each other. They bounce things off of each other, and it really looks awesome when we finally, when we put it all together. But we have a long extended version of Hey Viktor. It's about like 4 hours long. But and you get to see Colin at his finest. Like he's the master of improv. We could have wrote 2 scripts with just the improv that he had, man. Like he's an amazing, he's an artist. He's a master at what he does. And we were just so privileged to have him on there. We got some of the returning cast, Gary Farmer, good buddy of mine. Yep. I have another documentary that we're putting together with him. We got Irene Bedard. Who else? And our good brother Adam Beach. He's the pioneer of acting. If anybody thinks of indigenous actors, it's Adam Beach. Like he's the iconic indigenous actor. So we called him up, and he's just like one of us, our brother. Hey man, can you come do this show? Oh yeah, sure. Okay, when do you want me there? Yeah, I was like, you don't want to see the script or anything? Oh, no. I'll show up and I'll be there. Oh, okay, cool.
Well, it must have been an amazing time and an amazing movie. I mean, just the journey of it. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And for everybody out there, hey, Victor. You got to go see it for sure.
March 15th, today it comes out, but it will be playing on Crave. We have the rights. Crave has the rights to be streaming it after that. So everybody will get a chance to watch Hey, Victor.
Excellent. Well, everybody look for it on Crave. Let's make sure we all go watch it. And I think it'll just be a great, and it just sounds like an amazing time. And the main thing is you just had a blast, I'm sure, just having fun doing a project like this of this magnitude. So thank you so much. And I know, Simon, that, there's many parts to you in your life that, you do such good work, but also good things. And also you never forget where you come from, and I think that's a big part of who you are and who your makeup is. And I know that there's the Squamish Nation Youth Powwow that's been happening and such. And maybe tell me a little bit about the powwow life and powwow highway, but also the Squamish Nation Youth Powwow.
Yeah. Well, I am a proud member of the Squamish Nation. First and foremost, I am very proud of our leadership and where it's gone. And, I've followed you as well, T. I've seen all the hard work that you've put in making things work for our people, and that's really something that is stuck in my heart and my mind as well. Seeing our leaders, have to sometimes deal with so much but really it's about our people, and how can we go forward and what does the future look like? Because, I'm sure you being on council, you've taken a beating from our people and it isn't always, rainbows and butterflies. It's, it's hard work. And, I got to thank you, raise my hands to you for all your work that you've done for our nation as well. But with Squamish Nation Youth Powwow, it comes from another part of my heritage. My mother is Cree from Cowasis First Nations in Saskatchewan, and I grew up with knowing my mush and my grandfather quite well, spending a lot of summer times with him, and him giving me this opportunity to dance in the powwow. He created this regalia for me and just said, this is who you are. You really need to identify with this. This is something that will give you ground, will ground you to Mother Earth and will ground you in the rest of your life. And so I really took this on, and it became a big piece of me throughout my whole life. I've been dancing in powwows all across Indian country. And, I remember coming here to our Squamish Nation Youth Powwow when Gloria Nahaney, Auntie Gloria, put it on, and Uncle Keith and, the family there. And I just remember it was a big part of my life. I just always dancing in front of my community was something that I cherished. It was coming back. I didn't grow up on our reserve, right? I grew up, out in Langley and, out in everywhere else I was filming as well. But so I didn't really have too much connection. I yearned for it almost, So coming back and being able to dance in front of my community and getting to, know a little bit more of my community was really important to me. And it was, I remember Uncle Si, sitting me down on his lap and, telling me about how it was all created when he brought, powwow here in 1948. And, that really resonated with me too. I really respected him. I seen him with the Queen and seen him traveling the world as well, being a big ambassador of the Squamish Nation. And that really stuck with me. And, seeing the family take it on for 34 years, really, kept me going and remembering that, there's work. There's a lot of work that, needs to be done in order for us to carry on with our culture or our ways, So COVID happened. And right after COVID, Auntie Gloria passed. And that was, it was because I was excited to see the powwow again and see what was going to happen, and hopefully be a part of it as well. I was talking to Kanani about the powwow, and she just mentioned, the family's going through their grieving and we can't take it on at this point in time. Would this be something that you'd be into? And I said, well, running a powwow, I've danced in one. I've been around it. I've never run a powwow, what does that take, So it was almost like 3.5 months to like our date of July. And, I just looked, prayed and said to the Creator, I said, if this is something that's meant to be, then give me some sort of sign, give me a little push here, help me out a little bit. And it's a lot of work. I know it's a lot of work. And so literally 2 days later, a good business relationship that I've worked out with FortisBC, they came forward and said, yeah, we'll sponsor your powwow. And I said, well, what, how much or what, and they just said, well, give us a number and let's see if we can work with that. And I just sent them the number and they're like, yep, not a problem. And so I had a good smile on my face. My fiance, Carmen Moore, she just said, I think this is meant to be. Your great uncle ran it, brought it here. Your Auntie Gloria ran it for this long. So almost it's full circle of, now it's in your hands and see what you can do with it. And I really talk about, and I say this at the powwow is, I didn't take it over. I hate that word of takeover or commander or, the leader and that type of sense. It was placed in my hands for me to share it. And when the family's ready to come back and be a part of it, the door's open. I'm not taking this and leading it off to anywhere else. And I just want it here. And most importantly, I want it here for our youth. It's a day and age where our technology and where we just, we lead our ways with this, and hard to communicate, hard to speak with each other without having our phones involved or a computer involved into our daily routine. And I see that with our youth. I'm trying to engage with them and trying to, inspire them, but I can't with their heads down. Mm-hmm. So this powwow really just is about bringing everybody back together, bringing our community and lifting up our youth through dance and singing and culture. So it really is important for me to, make sure that this is a youth powwow. It's orientated for our youth. We want to inspire. And when I talk about building business relationships, every sponsor that comes into onto our community here in Homolcheson, I want them to set up a booth. I want them to set up a booth and have job opportunities there for our youth. I open up for the powwow and I say, you know what? We don't have any more excuses not to be employed. I'm giving you firsthand right now. You can walk 20 steps over and have this relationship with Fortis, have this relationship with Wood Fiber, have this relationship with Pavco, have these relationships that, that you started as well, T, that, like you've done the work, and tell them that there's no more excuses. Here it is. Sign up, get a job. Let's make ourselves proud to be Squamish people. Let's make ourselves proud and where we are in the forefront. Because those leaders, our Munmun are the next leaders, man. And they got, the opportunity is sky's the limit for them.
It really is, just sharing, some of your Cree heritage and then your Squamish, your culture here. I think, not many people realize, there's over 630 First Nations across the country. And then you have Inuit and you have
Yeah.
Métis, and there's all different cultures. And one of the things I, kind of not learned, but I was able to experience in leading up to 2010 was, going to every province and territory was to witness their culture, and I know leading up to 2010, people thought we were all the same. Like we were all, had the same regalia. We all talked the same language, and nothing could be farther from the truth. We have protocols and we have our cultures that, are unique to where we live, but some of the family values and those kinds of things are so important. So being able to dance powwow, but also be here in Squamish too, and, participate in the ceremonies that we have that are important, because people didn't also know that, we had, kind of house posts, we had, welcome figures, but we didn't have totem poles here at Squamish, and so as you go up the Northwest coast, there's those differences, and we had shed style
Right.
longhouses, rather than A-frame
Yeah.
longhouses. How have you found with the youth in terms of, kind of expressing their cultures through powwow? What kind of difference that makes for them in their life? Because we're always taught, like always know who you are and where you come from, and that instills the pride. But is that what you're finding with the youth that are participating?
That's what I want to make, very poignant when I do bring powwow here is, first and foremost, we are Squamish. We should be proud of that. We can't forget what our ancestors and what our culture is. I promote our culture. I talk about our songs. I talk about our dances and our longhouse. We can't forget that. But, integrating other cultures that are open, that are ready for us to come together in bigger, capacities, like a powwow, it's important. It's not stopping us. We don't have barriers of, okay, well, that's just your culture. You can only dance that way and you can only do that. No, this is about just culture itself, something that was almost lost, something that we were brought up that wasn't allowed. We weren't allowed to speak our language. We weren't allowed to go to our longhouse or our potlatches or powwows. So I really tell our youth, this is important for us to revitalize our culture. It doesn't matter if it's not from here, the territory. It's practiced all across North America, and it's even going into Europe as well too. We got powwows over in Hawaii. We got powwows over in Germany and Switzerland, and so people really are grasping this. As long as we understand where we come from, who we are, we take pride in that. Then going forward and practicing other culture, I think, is very important. That's how our minds can grasp and discover different things. And I'm really promoting them to step out of their boundaries. Like we have a real closed in thing about all of us. It was a big thing for myself, was the shyness and not understanding, that we can help each other out, like not to put down each other, not to think badly of other cultures or other ways, but just to absorb them and to be a part of them. Some of our best dancers are not Cree, not Sioux, not from the plains. They're Coast Salish. They're dancing, they're ripping things up in powwow country, man, and that's awesome to see that. We got Coast Salish women singing, these powwow songs in our Coast Salish language, which is really cool.
And it's amazing, and that's the thing about it is, even though we have those unique aspects, but also through intermarriages, that these are part of our community. The Squamish Nation powwow, when I was on council, such an important part. When your Auntie Gloria, I remember going down there and helping, and when I was on council and supporting it, because it's so important to our community. An expression of culture is so important, because that your roots and where you come from are important, but also understanding all of it. For me, my father was a Maori, from New Zealand, and I would love if there was something here that I could learn more about my Maori culture in a way that's right in our community. It would be amazing, and my boys are Kwakwaka'wakw, Maori, and Squamish, and Snedening, right? So we have all these different aspects to our culture, and the youth power that you're talking about is so important in keeping them along, and then them traveling from place to place and sharing culture and being with one another is really so important, because you build those networks, as you know, for life.
Exactly.
That's a big part of it.
Yeah. It's seeing some of my friends that are really doing well in powwow, and Fawn Wood. She's a Juno Award winner, a Grammy nominated, and she comes, from the Coast Salish Stolo people, and we grew up right across here at the field here, dancing together. That's where we first met each other. Was and it's funny because she came here. Her and her husband Dallas Waska he's the leader of Cree Confederation, one of the best powwow drum groups out there. They came to our powwow last year, and she looked and she's like, she sort of started to tear up a little bit and said, "You know what? I haven't been back here since we were kids." And I looked at her and I was like, "That's crazy." I almost forgot that, this is where we met each other, and we've known each other for this long. You're doing such an amazing job in singing and being in the music industry, and, myself being in the film industry, and we're just here doing to inspire the next generation, man. If I've gotten this far, you imagine what the next generation can get to? We just finished watching the Oscars, seeing Lily Gladstone up there, really touched me and, inspired me again to, think of, maybe one day I can get there. Or, what? Not about me. It's about that next generation. And if they can get up there and be there, it's when they get there.
That's exactly right. When you talk about youth and youth engagement and, what it means to share culture, that is really so important. And, when we think about those things in the generations to come, we're taught to think 7 generations ahead, but just the importance and just some of your thoughts around youth and, our youth and kind of where they're going, but also, what it means to share culture.
Sorry, what was that?
Yeah. So I was just thinking, like, the youth that inspiring the next generation. I think maybe we could talk a little bit about, how these youth and what it means for them to share culture, and just, how things have been passed on from you, but what you're passing on to them. And I think that's that connection that we talk about. And you mentioned earlier, it's not taking over things, you're carrying it on, and that's something that, again, that's passed on from our ancestors to us. But just, a little bit more, we can talk a little bit more about the youth. And I think that's a big part of it. Like, we have kids and similar ages and those types of things, but what it means for them to share culture in terms of not just in our communities or in other communities, First Nation communities, but also just outside of our communities is so important.
So I've been busy with my daughter and my niece, traveling to schools and teaching powwow, and just telling kids about powwow, and letting others know that our community is open. We're not closed doors anymore. We're not pushing anybody out away, or, we want to share our culture. We want to share our vibrant history with you. We've been shut down for too long. And that's what those indifferences are, that when you get those indifferences are, it's like, oh, well, that's your culture. You got to stay away. We don't want to pry. We don't want to, step around. And, I still get those questions. Oh, are we allowed there? And it's, like our welcome figures are this, we're open. Yeah. We're open, just respect and understand and come with an open heart, open mind. This is how we are. We want to share with you. It's our time to share with you, so that those little ones, those little mun get it in their head that it's okay to be different. It's okay that you speak a different language. It's okay that your color of skin is different. That it's okay, because we need to, in the next 7 generations, they really need to come together. They really need to understand being together, unification can build these bridges, mend these bridges that our ancestors in the colonial way has sort of messed it up. We can't forget about our past. We can't forget about all the atrocities that happened. We need to learn from it. And these generations that are just sitting there in awe and understanding that, like, wow, you guys weren't allowed to speak your language. You weren't allowed to dance or be a part of it. What? Why? That's the good question. When one of the kids comes and says, why weren't you allowed? That's when we can, really spark into it and get into it. When we talk about truth and reconciliation, the truth is the first and foremost that needs to be talked about. We can't forget the past. We need to speak the truth and understand the truth. And then we get into the reconciliation part, That's the real meaning behind it all, right?
Absolutely. And, the kind of work that you do and others do in music industry, film industry, for so long, we never saw ourselves there, and now we see yourself and others that are out in the world doing those things, and that inspiration comes and they know you can be proud of where you come from. And that was a big part of it. I know when I grew up, in North Van on the res around here, I grew up in 10 years of my life in the downtown East End and stuff like that. But it was hard to feel proud sometimes, other than when we were in our community or around our family and friends, because there were so many prejudgments of who I was as a person, or, whether we had, alcohol problems, whether we had drug problems, whether we were late all the time, or, whether we could produce, or whether we could, be professional, and just growing up as a kid, you're just getting bombarded with all these negative kind of media, stories and messaging that was coming into me all the time, and I think that it was one of the things that I noticed too is, the more we're able to see each other, like we all have to be together. That's the one thing I've learned, and I think you're talking about exactly the same thing is, I used to talk to schools as well, and, they just didn't know, right? And part of the good work that you're doing and going out and sharing culture, but also being able to answer questions, and that's, it's a safe place when they're with you for people to ask questions. I remember one young, I think it was grade 3 or 4, somewhere around there, just asked me, "Thank you for coming today. And did you come in on your horse? Can I see your horse?" I said, "That's my horse out there. It's a 1977 Firebird." And she's like, "Oh, wow." And one of the other kids says to me, "It was a long time ago when with your people, with your ancestors." And he said ancestors too. I remember saying that. He goes, "Where did you go to the bathroom?" And I said, "Do you see those bushes over there?" "Yeah." I said, "It was like right there, like those kinds of places." Okay, so, but it was a safe place, and it wasn't anything that, for me, these were real questions that were coming, and, they were important. And I'm sure you've faced some of the questions from youth and other people, just about culture, not only kind of, hey, is it okay to come there, but is it safe to come there? But is there any other kinds of stories that stand out in your mind in your travels to the schools or other places?
It's funny when we talk about our ancestors and how we are supposed to pass on this knowledge, and it always, it reverberates in my head of, what my father used to do. I used to be a little kid going around with him to all these little school, he was a practitioner of our culture for years, right? And I watched him and just in awe, that was only the real times that I felt, that I was Indian, that I was Squamish and, doing our thing there. And then I'd leave and go back to Langley and, put my head back on and, try to hide my braid and try to hide my hair and, tell people that I was Irish and, try to relate with them because, it was so different. But now, everybody, has this new outlook of culture. It's accepted. It's, differences are even better to be more different. It's there. But, now that I'm going into, doing this type of thing, it's another full circle. I look up and I laugh sometimes, and I know my dad's looking down at me and just saying, "See, I told you would be doing what I was doing. Whether you like it or not, you're in there, son. You're doing it." And I get those fun questions, and I say that, and I before I open up in any type of questionnaires, I just say, you know what? There is no stupid question. Shoot, let me try. It's about getting out. I tell the kids, it's better to try and ask than to sit there and not understand. And I'm only here for a little bit. So please, ask me any question that you feel. And I get those same ones too, like, oh, I saw your people rode horsebacks, are you good on the horse, or, that type of thing. And you guys still live in igloos? That's the American one.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That is.
But it's sharing is the most important thing, and I really promote that. I go and tell these man that being able for me to share is so important for me. I jump at it. If a school asked me to come and tell you guys a little bit about powwow, man, I jump at the opportunity. This is what really drives me these days, is being able to share with you, because you guys are the next leaders. You're the next ones that will make the difference. My time is, halfway done here. I'm getting to the time where, things are starting to mold and be this way and do this way, but you guys can mold your own, whatever picture that you want. It's your time. It's your time to come in and shine. So, I guess the full circle of, being the practitioner of my culture is really important to me now. And now that we have our languages back in universities, I'm looking into getting back in there and start learning our language. Being a part of that, is important to me. 38 years old, going back into university, I never thought of that, but I'm jumping at that, I'm looking and hungry for that, and to hear our people speaking our languages too, like walking into a building and you hear our language, it makes you feel so good,
It really does. It picks you up, and it lifts you up. And, I talk a lot about that in, professional life or even sports life, those kinds of things. And, it's different concept for people, because it's, oftentimes, in the world, in the mainstream world, I guess it's the only way I can think about it is you got to push people down, or you got to climb on top of them, or get ahead of them, or, it just creates an environment of, that where it's ultra competitive, and I'm a competitive person, but at the same time, if you do if you play lacrosse in a certain way, then it's the experience that's important, the winning or whatever, that all those things take care of itself. It's the journey, in that, and that's the medicine that you take from it. And so I think what you're talking about too is so important for other people to, in the worlds that you walk, to hear those teachings, which they are, those teachings, because hopefully they can take maybe one teaching from you, and apply it to what they're doing. And that's the other thing, is we're also really good listeners too. So we hear, and I think that's something that it's okay for people to ask questions, but also at the same time, be open, like you said, open heart and open mind is also important. And that's something that I've experienced. And, with the youth in our communities, they really are the future, and they really can accomplish anything they want, in whatever field they want, as an artist, as a professional person, as a politician, anything, and when we grew up, maybe it was quite a bit different. We just, whether we saw somebody, I remember seeing, Little Big Man, and seeing, hearing, Chief Dan George, and, and Leonard George was in the movie, late Leonard George, Chief Leonard George. And, like, I was like, wow, it was amazing. I was so proud, to see Chief Dan George, on the main stage, and, the Oscars and those kinds of things. But it didn't happen enough. And with Lily lately, like, it's so important to see those things, and the work that you're doing, not only at the schools, but also in the movie industry, and being able to share those things. And I think that's a big part of what you're talking about, is being able to do those things. And are there, have you traveled around BC mostly in the schools, or have you given talks, around the world or different places?
I've traveled around the world, and I have a documentary show called Native Planet, where I had the opportunity to travel all around the world, seeing environmental and cultural issues. And that was the main thing, was seeing how our youth across the world are being affected, and what's happening with them. And it's, you go to one country and you realize that they're 20 steps behind. or not, like, and you come home and, you tell the people that, man, we gotta stop, procrastinating here and stop, thinking that everybody's against us. We're at least, getting to the table now. We're at least, in the communications of our own territories. You go to some places and it's still that, that mentality of rape and pillage. Don't even care about what's happening, and the youth are dying off with cancers that are alarming, and it's scary to see some of this stuff that's happening around the world. So when I do get those little chances to speak to the youth in different countries, I really say that to them. It's you need to be strong. You need to be the ones, because your ancestors got you here. You look at them now, they may look small and weak, but they had to be strong and had to be the braves, the warriors, and, the strong ones for us to get to where we are now. But it's still your time. You need to take on what they have. Even if it's a small step that you've gotten to where you are now, you need to go forward and get there further. And I just love to see these new youths, because they're so open-minded. They're understanding it now, that, they're proud to be who they are, and they're proud to, really walk in our ancestors' shoes. And that's an amazing feeling, amazing accomplishment.
It is. It's incredible. And the future, I think, is a lot brighter than it was, 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago. And I think those youth are really the catalyst for the change, the transformation that's going to happen. And, part of it for you in your life in terms of the film industry is being able to be on, producing your own shows, directing and such, but also as a storyteller, being able to do documentaries and other types of productions, I think, are so important, because you're capturing it. As a visual artist, they carve or they'll create pieces, but as a documentary filmmaker, tell me a little bit about the Sanauk documentary and maybe other productions that you're working on, because that's so important also in marking history and being a storyteller.
Very important. I wish I was, a carver, and I tried a little bit. I was a painter. I tried a little bit of that. My father was amazing in it. My brother, my eldest brother, Jordan, he's a master carver now. My sister, she's a beautiful painter. And, and I sort of, started to feel like, oh, well, I don't have any of that. I can't connect with any of that. Poor me. Until I started to get into producing and started to get into, writing and creating these stories. Getting these opportunities of working with real world media and on their unscripted documentaries, I started to, I realized, wow, I am a storyteller, whether, it's a way of who I am, and I get to tell it through a lens so people can see it for forever. It will be there forever. And now I've really taken that on, and, I'm hustling every day trying to create these stories, because it's so important for us to tell these stories, especially this new documentary on our Sanauk developments. It's been 100 years in the making to get this land back, where our people were just shipped off in barges and told it, pretty much told us to beat it, and go live over there. This is our land now, and you guys aren't welcome. And it takes it. Those are those traumas that we talk about. Imagine our people, what they had to feel, and just getting thrown onto barges and told to pick up and go and not even know where they're going. And now it's our turn to tell that story, and this is the Sanauk doc that I'm creating and wanting to tell those stories. Of 100 years, I want to show the past and now to the present. So I'm going to be doing this recreations of our people living over there and having, the special effects of what our villages look like, and showing people how beautiful our people used to live. We weren't a nation of destructors. We lived and breathed and consumed just what we needed. And we lived there for many years in peace and harmony until, we got told, okay, it's time to go. You guys got to leave. And then all of a sudden buildings started going up, and all of a sudden now we're here in this new era of economic developments, economic reconciliation, and land back. We're the frontiers. We're these pioneers of this economic developments that nobody has ever done. Nobody ever thought, an indigenous community could build these $billion high rises and make it not just for their people, but make it for everybody. We're open again. We're here. We hear the call. We hear the call of our neighbors that they need housing as well, affordable housing. We're not here to jack up prices and make it, this is prime property. And I'm sure we do have some properties like that will be built. But mostly it's about us surviving and being back on our traditional territories with our neighbors, hand in hand. And, that's the real promotion there.
Yeah, it's so true. When I was on council in the 90s, it was, I had a chance, we were moving through the Omnibus Trust Action, which was launched in 1977, which included, it was omnibus, meaning different pieces of land, like in North Van, Squamish, Stanley Park, and others. And when we talk about Sinauk, I remember going in and seeing some of the newspaper articles from the early 2000s. And it was just that the Indians are an eyesore and they need to move. There was this pressure that was coming, from the surrounding community, from media, really, and others, of course. But like, I was saying earlier, when you see yourself in such a negative light all the time, that's what you can become. Like that's, that mental part of it is so powerful. But also, with Sinauk, and just our people moving, and the village burned down, the next day, and it's just moving on to those barges over into North Van. But also, I think, it is, with our people, is that it's understanding what you're talking about is it is hand in hand. We have a crisis in this country, in the world, and addressing housing, not just in our community, but in the surrounding community is, it's a huge, highest priority. But what you're doing in marking this, and our elders used to tell us, I remember when the elders used to come meet with our council, don't write everything down all the time. Why don't you put it on video so we can watch it and we can see it? And that was something that stuck out of my mind. So when I heard about this project that you're working on for Sinauk and other projects, this comes from the ancestors, the elders. They're telling us to do that, and you're carrying on that work. And I think that's so important in the Sinauk project. I mean, it's the biggest First Nations economic development project in history. That's the size and scope and scale and significance of that, but also how it can help Vancouver. That's so important when people understanding that. So I can't wait to see the finished product.
I'm going to be knocking on your door as well for some help on that. You're going to be a part in that in our documentary as well. You're one of the leaders that was there and understanding it all and making this all come to light. Like we don't. That's the number one thing about like you said, is what we need to video. Our elders are, they're leaving us way too soon. It feels like, that we're one day they'll be here and then the next they're just gone. And then we realize like, oh shoot, we should have been filming, we needed to film with them. We needed to get their insights on everything. It wasn't too long ago where we almost lost our language. Where it wasn't written down, it wasn't documented, it wasn't, and then all of a sudden we're scrambling and like, oh shoot, we need to get, well, we only got 2 elders that fluently speak. So we need to, get on board and get ahead of ourselves here and start filming and documenting everything, like when we're not here and our generations of our bloodline is, there, hopefully that they remember that, oh man, like, Uncle T and Uncle Si, they put things down in the media. They got this stuff recorded. They got this stuff filmed, like we raise our hands to them. And that's our part, that's our part to give back to our community.
It's so important. I'm there for you anytime,
Same.
for sure. Definitely. And also, that's a big part of this show is really to talk about the things that are happening that are making positive change, in this country. And, Canada is looked upon, the country of Canada, but our peoples are, people around the world are watching, as you probably know. As I've traveled the world, people watch what we're doing here in this country and, in breaking new ground. And, when you talk about, the stories, part of this show is to actually capture as many of these stories as possible in a different way, and I think the documentaries are so important because those can go into schools, those can go, to companies that want to do business with our nation and other nations too. Those can go into archives in Canada. These things should be archived forever and never lost, right? Because like you said, we're losing more and more of our ancestors, elders all the time. And it's one thing I think we can all do, even it's youth at home and on their phones with technology to capture. And, that is so critical and important that I've seen. And, I'm really glad you're working on this now documentary because it's going to be an amazing story. It is an amazing story for sure.
And I'm talking about bringing in youth and carrying them forward. And, my daughter, Nevaeh, she's sort of following in my footsteps a little bit. And we just started revamping Native Planet. And going to be traveling the world again, but it's going to be with her. So she's going to come with me and be my shadow, or I might be her shadow, because those youth, they have some cool things they're doing around, that social media stuff that they got, and grasping it and understanding how to use it, and, them showing their culture in different ways is so cool. There was times when I was on the road and I'd be watching and there'd be these kids over there just laughing and having a good time. And they got, they're putting things together. And this was in Australia. These little kids are putting stuff together, carving things and doing this and laughing, having such an awesome time. And I looked over and I'm like, I want to be over there. I want to follow them, but the camera was leading me to the other way. So now I have my daughter and she's going to be going, so we're going to have a couple cameras and we're going to follow her and her journey as, being a young youth and an ambassador here and for our people, and then going and talking with the other youth and chatting with them and understanding, to have, we always wanted to be that fly on the wall, and listen to their conversations and see what they're doing, and you as a father, I'm sure you wanted to do that as well. But now, I'm sending her off and she's going to be a part of this. And she really is, starting to grasp what it means to be a healthy youth in our community and being a real ambassador. I know your sons are doing that as well. Your daughter has, taken on a big leadership role as well. So this is something that just makes us so proud, to see it first and, that it's coming to fruition, it's something else.
That's amazing. I can't wait to see that because you're right. I mean, that mentoring, we were taught, as I was, doing work in our community and stuff by the elders, like make sure you mentor someone or make sure you go with them, and share with them or teach them, or they like, you're exactly right. Our kids teach us so much. They're so smart. Like they're, all my kids are way smarter than I ever was for sure. There's no doubt about that. I'm just trying to figure out, how to, survive every day. That would be a good day, but where their minds go and how they can use technology and how they're connected to other people and understand how other people work is not something. I was pretty quiet too, like you, and so to see our kids doing these things is unbelievable. And for the work that you do, Simon, I hope that you'll come back on the show. But also, I think maybe why don't you?
I would love to
some of the shows. I think.
Yeah.
Hey,
we should get Koru to come and be a part of one too. I remember him interviewing me years ago, when I was like, I was young and he was just this young kid, and I was thrown off a little bit because of his interviews. It was so good. I was like, like I thought it was just going to be, this little kiddie type of thing. He stood there, held his ground, answered me these, asked me these cool questions. And I'm like, wow, he must be T's son.
He'd love to participate, and he's going to be hosting some shows as well. And I think the main thing is our youth are our future. And thank you today. Thank you for your time. And I can't wait to see you at the next community event or on TV or on the big screen, so make sure you watch Crave, everybody that's out there, and check out the Squamish Nation Youth Powwow, and looking forward to the documentary down the road. So Coach, thank you very much.
Thank you. And I still have you signed on as my captain on the Masters team. So you better be stretching those calves out now.
I've already started, brother.